Hi, I'm Tori Hagaman. Have you ever selected a photograph to make a painting, but you realized that the painting wasn't nearly as exciting as your photograph? Well, I've had that happen to me many times, and I've given it a lot of thought, and I think I figured out where I was going wrong. I'm going to show you today a photograph of a lavender field that I thought had great potential to make a really good painting. And then I'm going to take you through the steps of the actual painting, where I made darn sure that I didn't lose sight of those key elements that drew me to the photograph in the first place. Hopefully this will help you with your next project. Stay tuned. This is the photograph of the lavender field that we're going to be doing. This is from Paint My Photos. And some of the things that I love about this photo that caused me to choose it, that I want to make sure we take into our painting, the first thing that drew me was this extreme dark. It's almost black right here at the very front of the photo, and these other big shadow areas. I thought that's going to be great, having all this drama and dark right at the front of our painting. I love also this other strong shadow line, and even at the very back of the painting you're getting these catches of dark where you're seeing in between the rows of the lavender. An artist said this years ago. I wish I could remember who said it so I could give him credit for it, but he said if your painting has a Z in it, Z like zebra, it'll make for a better painting. Might have been Kyle Buckland, but if you'll look, here's the Z. It goes there, there, and there, and that what that Z is doing is it's just pulling your eye back. I love, even though I'm not a big purple fan, I do love the fact that there's this purple in the field and all this purple up in the sky. So I want to make sure these two are connected. I love that. I love that there's this hill in the back, and then there's even a mountain range behind that. So you've got layer upon layer upon layer of geography that's just pushing your eye back and giving this great sense of depth. So these are some of the elements that I want to make sure we retain in the painting, things that drew me to it to begin with, that I think are going to make for a really dramatic painting. So let's get to it. I lightly penciled in my drawing, making sure that I got all the shadow areas and the perspective identified. I used one of my very favorite brushes, the Rosemary & Company Classic Long Flat. It's great for making those loose impressionistic marks. I'll put a link below in the description box. I like to pre-mix my colors. I use dioxazine purple, ultramarine blue, and light blue permanent to get a variety of blues and purples that I used in the field and in the sky. That provided great color harmony. I added some golden open acrylic medium just to slow the drying time of my paints. I've laid in my darkest darks using sap green and burnt umber, and I even used pure black in that bottom left-hand corner, just identifying every shadow and dark place on the canvas. Now I'm laying in a lighter green, which was sap green, and a little bit of cad yellow medium. Then I started laying in the dirt. I love burnt sienna for this. And I used burnt umber in the darker spots. I was careful to get those small marks that were in the very back of the painting. I laid in a flat area of purple just to get the base color of the lavender field. And I started to put in that bright lime green, and I almost chickened out. It was so bright, but it was super bright in the photo, and I decided to leave it. And I was so glad I did. I love that sharp color in the front. Here I'm putting in that golden hill in the back, and I ended up changing that yellow tone to it pushed that hill way too far forward and was messing with the perspective I felt, so I changed it later. Here I'm putting in the sky color using ultramarine and a lot of white, and I was not a slave to the photograph, but I was trying to establish an interesting edge and it not looking like just repetitive cotton balls. I used a lot of white with touches of the blues and purples. I spent a long time on this sky, just going over it and over it with soft strokes, blending, keeping very soft edges, keeping a lot of movement to the sky. You'll see on this left side, I use brush strokes going up and to the left just to give that impression of movement. Here I'm reestablishing those dark lines at the back of the field, just darkening those up a little bit more. Here's a close-up of the lavender field, and you'll notice that I went back over it many times with various purples and blues to help give it a more impressionistic, painterly look. I'd never painted lavender heads before. I didn't know what I was doing, so I got a paper plate out and several small brushes, and I just started experimenting until I found a brush that gave me the look that I wanted. It was a little liner brush, and I made the paint fairly wet, and I just whipped that brush back and forth to give me a loose look. Here's a close-up of those lavender heads against the black. Doesn't that look great? It's so dramatic. And you'll notice that the lavender heads are different. They don't have the same brush marks. I was careful to keep them uh, a variety of marks. Here it is with the lime green. I love that lime green and that jet black and those purple lavender heads and all the contrast. It's just a lot of drama in that one little corner of the painting. Here's the finished painting. I was really pleased with this. I felt like it stayed true to the photograph, keeping those key elements that were important to me, the dark shadows and the lines and the depth and the big sweeping sky. And here's the original photograph. So I encourage you, as you're looking at photographs to paint from, look for great shadow patterns, depth. Maybe there's a color that's really speaking to you. Maybe it's just the overall composition is interesting. But as you're doing your painting, continue to look back and make sure that you're staying true to those elements that drew you in the first place. Hey, if you've enjoyed this video, I sure would appreciate it if you would hit the like button and hit subscribe. It could go a long way in helping me get this channel up and running. I'd love for you to leave any comments. Thanks a lot.